You subscribe, right flowers, now, or me bash you with rock.
Hey guys, I'm Rat Flowers, and things have to change. Dead by Daylight is in one of the worst balanced spots it's ever been in its modern area, which I consider year 6 onward. Among other issues, this game has certainly gotten better in some aspects, don't get me wrong, but it still has a lot of work to do. This video will go over a ton of the base game changes that I want to come to the game. Note that this does not directly pertain to specific killers, perks, items, or add-ons, so on and so forth. This is simply about core mechanics, though specific relevant perk changes will be mentioned here and there. Full disclosure, I'm a killer main, so a good chunk of these will be a little bit killer-sided, but I do have survivor-sided changes in mind as well. I'll start with a few of those, just in case that part of the player base has my home address. You know who I'm talking about. Pinging system for survivors. One change that would be extremely beneficial for the game, especially for solo queue, is a pinging system, similar to what the games Fortnite and My Hero Ultra Rumble have. Use it to ping generators, ping locations to heal at, ping hex totems, indicate whether or not you're going for a save, ping where the killer is last seen, etc. Although this wouldn't change the fact that you can't cure stupid, it would massively improve communication and quality of life for solo queue survivors. Killers in 2v8 should also have this as well, because it's also a team. Show survivors' perks to each other. This is one of the more obvious things that should come to the game, but have a display in the match info menu that shows your survivor teammates' perks. Again, it helps you and your teammates to be on the same page for what your moves are going to make. Of course, this could lead to griefing, where asshole teammates could deny you value on purpose. For example, Hook rescuing a struggle phase survivor right in front of you when you have shouldered the burden, but the pros to showing perks to each other far outweighs the cons. And besides, griefing is a reportable offense, and behavior has been getting a lot better at enforcing its rules lately. Hide items from the killer in the lobby. Self-explanatory, I really don't think that the killer should be able to see the items that survivors are bringing in the pregame lobby. The equivalent of this would be survivors that seeing that you're going to be playing the twins, and then all running anti-slug builds. Whenever I'm in a pregame lobby, most of the time, I hardly pay attention until the actual match begins, often watching like a YouTube video essay on a horror game that all takes place in the head of a guy with schizophrenia, made by a guy with an inflation fetish. And I still do relatively well. So, this is a change I wouldn't mind as a killer. Dynamic advice pop-ups. This is a change that would benefit both sides. After the match ends, a pop-up box with 3 bits of advice will pop up on the side of your screen. The advice will be on whatever you struggle the most with in the game, like gen efficiency, choosing which chases to commit to, specific aspects of a killer's power, or add-ons, or how to deal with use, or how to deal with or use certain perks. This would be very helpful for those who don't have time or don't care to go and watch DBD YouTubers to see what they could improve upon. DBD has an absolute pandemic of players who, let's face it, are complete ass at the game, hardly ever try to learn how to properly do things, and make it everybody else's problem. These being people that behavior actually listens to for some reason, mostly on the survivor side of things. So these pop-ups might help that situation at least a little bit. Sound visualizer. Accessibility is important, and behavior has actually been getting better about that recently, adding customizable colors for scratch marks and auras, as well as an FOV slider. The logical next step is to add a visualizer for all sounds, like footsteps, screams, and breathing. It'd be a change that many who are deaf or hearing impaired could get behind. Of course, you'd have to consider how every sound would be registered, like Spirit's Power, maybe have that indicator be non-directional to within a certain distance, but it's a net positive for sure. Crosshair. This one's mostly for the Huntress main and me, but it would be good for just about every killer with any kind of ranged option. It'd also be great for survivors with flashlights. Not much else to say here. BP incentives for less used perks, killers, add-ons, etc. Right now, DBD has a problem with players only ever using the absolute best perks, items, killers, and add-ons, and not much else. It's an issue with basically every PvP game ever, but it's especially true for Dead by Daylight. I say that for the bottom 67% of used stuff, have a blood point incentive to use those things, with the amount of bonus blood points given scaling with how unused they are. It'd help in shaking up what kind of perks you'd encounter, so each game would feel more like a unique experience, rather than the same SB, Vigil, or Corrupt Intervention, Eruption, Bubba Slop every game. To take it a step further, I'd also make what perks that get BP bonuses individualized for each killer, just to account for each killer's unique gameplay. So on Huntress, BP bonuses would be on batteries included in Rapid Brutality, but on Spirit, it'd be Iron Maiden and I'm All Ears. In-game bug reporting. In the after game menu, have a thingy where you can report bugs you ran into in the match. It'd make bug reporting a whole lot smoother, and not have to go off platform or put in a support ticket to see about it. Mostly self-explanatory, not much else to say here. Red stain removal. Heading into the killer-sided changes, I'll start with what may be one of the most controversial ones. The red stain that the killer has to indicate where they're looking, at least as it is now, is horrifically outdated. It makes the way the killer is moving way too obvious, gives an obscene amount of warning, and causes killers to have to face walls and orient their cameras in all sorts of bizarre ways, causing them to not look where they're going and bump into shit. It's an outdated as fuck mechanic, and it needs to go. Eyes and ears, and my previously mentioned sound visualizer, are more than enough to determine an adversary's next move. If you don't want to remove it entirely, then shorten it by half and have it be removed when the killer has Bloodlust, just to help out the lower tiers a bit. Reduce anti-tunnel, endurance, and haste duration. Self-explanatory, just reduce the anti-tunnel haste and endurance timer after you get hooked back to 10 seconds. There is zero reason it had to be increased back in 9.3.0. If you want, maybe meet somewhere in the middle, put it at 12 seconds, but yeah, the increase to 15 seconds, just flat out unnecessary. Non-tunneling generator regression incentive. To give killers a reason to go for unique hooks and not tunnel, which I define as hooking a survivor that is not the same survivor you hooked less than 60 seconds ago, give a concrete benefit to getting said unique hooks. I say that the benefit should be a non-explosive 5% loss of overall progress on the most progressed generator the moment you unique hook a survivor. I say non-explosive so it doesn't make survivors scream or trigger perks like Deadman Switch. This would be great for basically every killer, even the absolute worst, like Trapper, since it doesn't require stopping everything to manual generator. Some hook-activated gen regression perks would need to be adjusted to account for this, so here's a few I would change and how. Pain Resonance. Reduce progression loss to 15%, down from 20%. Note that this would be 15% in addition to the base kit 5%, so it would total 20%. Alternatively, you could reduce the additional progress loss to 10% if you're... because, like, the progress loss happens every time you unique hook. So, Pop Goes the Weasel. Reduce additional progress loss on Gen Kick to 11%, totaling 16%. Down from 15% additional, totaling 20%. Turn Back the Clock. Change its progress loss to be 13% of the gen's current progress. Regression event limit increase on gen completion. The gen regression event limit system is okay, but flawed, specifically in how rigid it is. I change it to where, whenever any generator is completed, all generators get an additional regression event, and the amount of said regression events can go above 8, which is the norm right now. This would add more leeway for games that turn to a war of attrition, which is a lot of the time if you're versing a good Swift. Regression Event Limit Indicator. Add an element to generators only visible to killers that indicates how many regression events are left on that generator. Maybe orbs on the sides. Not much else to be said here. Increase base gen regression speed. At base, damaged generators regress at a speed of 0.25 charges per second, meaning a generator that's at 99% progress, which 89 charges, would take 5.9 minutes to regress completely. This should be sped up a bit, so I say it should be increased to 0.333 charges per second. A 99 gen in this case would take 4.45 minutes to fully regress. It'd be a great step toward making base kit gen breaking more worthwhile. Of course, you'd have to reduce the regression speed bonuses provided by certain perks, so here's a few examples. Hex Ruin, reduce regression speed to 133%, making full regression from 99% progress take 3.35 minutes. Call of Brine, reduce regression speed to 133%, same as Ruin. Overcharge, this one would actually be okay in its current state, but I would maybe reduce its ending value slightly to like 125% or something, but yeah, it's mostly well off already. Increase hook density, or Rotten Oak base kit. Hooks, as they are now, are a bit too far apart, enabling very bullshit Sabo plays, and encouraging slugging to counteract said plays, a strategy that's not very popular with survivors. Sometimes, especially on certain maps like the game, there will just be entire sections of maps that don't have any hooks at all. I can't tell you how many times that's happened to me, especially when I'm using Pain Resonance. I say that hooks should spawn closer together, like a Rotten Oak base kit. I get that being able to camp multiple survivors at once would be a concern, but that's why the resolve bar / anti-camp bar exists. Obviously, killer oak offerings would have to be changed, so I say remove the green and blue oaks and give a 4 million blood point compensation, and nerf the purple rotten oak to make hooks only slightly closer together, like the survivor's petrified oak. Increase pickup and carrying speeds. Picking up and carrying survivors is quite sluggish, which enables really bullshit saves, and again, encourages slugging. I'd say to increase the picking up speed to 2 seconds, with the flashlight save window adjusted accordingly. Well, matter of fact, just remove the window and make flashlight saves take actual skill again. Also, increase the carrying movement speed to 4 meters a second. These two changes would make hooking more smooth and appealing. Agitation would have to have its movement speed bonus reduced to 10%, and also, just for shits and gills, just remove the terror radius size increase, because why is that a thing? I don't know, man. Slug Anti-Camp meter. Back to survivor side changes for a bit. Add an anti-camp meter for downed survivors. Camp downs are considerably harder to rescue survivors from without certain perks, so I'd say add a resolve bar that, like the one on the hook, fills up the longer the killer is in proximity to the downed survivor without another survivor being nearby. Once it's full, you can pick yourself up and get 8 seconds of haste and endurance, with the haste being 8%. Not much else to say here. Pre-9.2.0 Deerstalker partially base kit. One of the reasons why a survivor might be left on the ground for a long time is because the killer simply can't find them when they've crawled off somewhere. This can be easily remedied by letting the killer see the auras of downed survivors within 16 or 20 meters of their location. Of course, certain survivor perks can be allowed to hide this, like Distortion or Plot Twist. Boon's Break on Snuffing. Have boon totems break when the killer snuffs them. This would make boon perks far less annoying to go against, and would also allow for them to be made more powerful without breaking the game. You could maybe have Circle of Healing affect medkit heals. That'd be crazy, but manageable with Boon Breaking. Hell, it could even allow for the booning of multiple totems at once, again, without breaking the game. A meaningful effect of Exhaustion. Last one, at least for this video. Exhaustion, as it stands, literally only prevents the use of certain perks and nothing else. Not every survivor is a Sprint Burst or Iron Will Chud, so exhaustion should have an actual associated risk to it. When exhausted, the affected survivor should have the breathing they make after they stop running be permanent until exhaustion goes away, and while they're injured, have their breathing and groans of pain be audible from 8 meters further away. This would mean that survivors would actually have to mind the risk of being exhausted beyond just not being able to use their unearned speed boost, and would make exhausting killer perks and add-ons actually meaningful beyond just shutting off certain perks that a survivor may or may not have. And that's about it for the changes in this video that need to come to Dead by Daylight. DBD, as it is now, is a buggy and balancing nightmare, mostly shafting killers, in favor of the loudest and dumbest minority of players who will cry foul if the ghoul so much as breathes funny. I love this game, but it's rough, so these changes would make the game a lot more bearable to play for longer sittings, more accessible, non-toxic, strategies made more incentivized, and appealing, and making more players more educated. Of course, there will never be a time in Dead by Daylight where everyone is going to be happy with the state of the game. Especially not people who don't know the difference between cleansing and booning, despite them having different indicator icons. Yes, people are really that imbecilic. But they'd make the players who have actual critical thinking skills happy, which is what really matters. Will behavior ever implement these changes? Only time will tell. Personally, I think maybe. Odstarva has talked about balancing quite a bit recently, and behavior really does seem to hold him in high regard, and they have the consultant program, which they should add me to. And honestly, at this point, Odstarva should be the one in charge of the game, honestly. Like, that sounds like a meat riding, and I kinda am. So yeah, comment your opinions if you agree or disagree with any of the things I've said throughout this video. Subscribe to my channel and hype this video. I'm Flowers. And in conclusion,
TTB, the T stands for
Tung Tung Tung. Don't like this video. Did you just like it? You better not comment. You don't listen very well, do you? Did you just share it?